Hey, thanks for taking a minute to join us for this week's God is CEO Midweek Encourager. We're here to encourage you and equip you so that God can be honored in all of your work and in your businesses. It is hot. It is windy out there. And I'm not just talking physical temperature. I'm talking our culture as a whole right now. You probably know very well that there's a lot of difficulties going on around us. There's a palpable level of anxiousness and tense in our society right now. And it's spilling over into every aspect of our lives. That includes our work and our businesses. People are anxious. People are tense. What's our response as leaders in our companies? What's our response as owners? What's our response as team managers? What's our response as coworkers? We're called to love people. That's what it says in Romans chapter 13 when the Apostle Paul is encouraging kind of living out the faith. It talks about fulfilling the whole law of God can be summed up in love your neighbor as yourself. In other words, love people. And then in James chapter 2, it's the encouragement again to fulfill the royal law. Love your neighbor as yourself. Love people. We are called to love people. And right now, maybe more than ever in our lifetime, there is a need for us to rise up to the call of God to love people. Well, how do we love people right now? This week I want to encourage all of us that maybe the best way we can love people right now is by lowering the temperature. How do we lower the temperature so we can engage in healthy conversation and care for people? This week I want to encourage all of us to take on the wisdom of Proverbs, and that's by loving people by listening. The best thing that many of us can do right now is to become better listeners, because by becoming better listeners, we're going to lower the temperature. How many of you have ever said, hey, I don't need any more good listeners in my life? How many of you ever said, wow, I really don't like that person. They're a really good listener. We enjoy listeners. Listeners are a benefit to us. We want to be around listeners. Listeners open up the door for further conversation. So maybe the best thing we can do right now is to become better listeners. Why? Because sometimes we get ourselves in trouble and we dishonor God when we talk too much. That's what it says in Proverbs chapter 18, verse 3. It says, fools delight in airing their own opinions. I know that that's been true of me at times. I can talk too much and I need to listen more. Proverbs 21:23 says, those who guard their mouths and their tongues keep themselves from calamity. In other words, those who listen more do well. We're called to become listeners. So how can we become listeners who lower the temperature? Because that can be an expression of loving people. This week I want to encourage you with two practical things all of us can do to become better listeners this week. And this will improve our work environments. This will improve the culture in our companies. This will open up dialogue opportunity with people where we can share the good news, where we can help maybe point towards some harder truths. But it begins with listening. Here's two practical things all of us can do. And I'm preaching to myself this week. I'm preaching to myself every week. This week I know that I need to improve in this area. Two things we can do to become better listeners. Here's the first one, and that's this. Confirm what you hear from that person. So just get in the habit of confirming what you hear. So someone is sharing with you their opinion, repeat their opinion back to them, not word for word, but in your own language, so that they understand that, hey, that person heard what I said. Confirm what they said. Here's what you're trying to do. You're simply relaying information back so that they know that you heard what they said. Number one, confirm what they said. Number two, affirm the feelings that they expressed. Affirm the feelings that they expressed. Here's how that works. When they're conveying information, they're also sharing feelings. They might be sharing grief. They might be sharing anger. They might be sharing disappointment. So something you can follow up is very simply say, that's understandable that you're really angry. You may follow up something like this. Wow, I also would be really grieved by that. I also would be really disappointed. What you're doing is you're affirming the feelings that they have, and you're expressing to them that you understand. Here's one other thing that will help with that. They will tell you if those are not the feelings that they have. So if you say, I understand that anger, they're going to let you know, I'm not mad about that. I'm sad, or whatever it might be. Number one, confirm what you heard. Number two, affirm the feelings that you're sensing. That's going to open the door. That's going to provide that person a safe place. It's also going to lower the temperature in the room and allow for there to be healthy conversation. You and I are called, we are created to love people, to reflect the image of God to one another. We do this by listening, by engaging with one another. And if we're going to have healthy conversation, it begins by becoming better listeners. And so this next week, let's build a habit of confirming what we've heard. Let's build a habit of affirming what they're feeling. Thanks for taking a moment to be encouraged this week, and let's go forth and lower the temperature by loving people, and we love people by beginning to listen. Have a great week, everybody.